nation as we deal with this and try to eventually, hopefully soon, move forward and out of this place where we are today.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm sorry to stop
Yes.
you. I'm being told that they're not hearing. Okay, I'm just now being told they're just now hearing your audio on the stream.
Okay.
So I'm not sure everything you just said was reached everyone.
Not sure I could say it the same way again. So. Are we good? Okay. So for those of you that are joining us on the stream and audio, I was just saying this is a first of its kind meeting in Seminole State College's history. And certainly during this time, this is not a preferable way for us to have meetings. We certainly prefer to do these in person. And our hearts certainly go out to those that are affected by this, and more than just having to have virtual meetings. We know there's a lot of folks that are hurting in our community, and our hearts go out to our students, our community, our state, and our nation as we deal with this. And hopefully we'll turn the corner on this and get back to face-to-face meetings, handshakes and hugs. And that's where we hope to be really soon. So thank you all for joining us at Seminole State's Board of Trustees meeting. We're going to go ahead and get started this morning with the Pledge of Allegiance. So you'll see the flag in front of you. If you would stand, and I will lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, great. Now, at this time, we're going to go ahead and start with the public comment portion of the meeting. As of right now, I have 3 of 4 public speakers that are speaking to items not on the agenda. And we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the public comment portion. So these individuals have filled out comment cards, and we're going to start with Katrina Shaddix. Is Katrina on the line? Can you?
I think we might just need to give it a second. They're queuing up the callers.
Okay. Do we want to move to your report, Madam President, or we'll just wait for the college to?
Moderator, do we need to change the order of the agenda? Oh, I see that the speaker is speaking but do not hear her.
I'm sorry, you waiting for Katrina Shaddix?
Yes.
Oh, that's me. I'm here. Sorry, it's a little hard to get used to the system.
That's okay. It's difficult for all of us. So welcome to the meeting. And if you would state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to present to the board. And at about 30 seconds, you will hear a sound that'll indicate you have 30 seconds left. Go ahead, Katrina.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Katrina Shaddix, 1133 Covington Street, Oviedo, Florida, 32765. Again, thank you for having this format and letting us participate. And I am an alumni of Seminole State, and I went to Seminole State when it was Seminole Community College. I also graduated with honors, and not that this is a competition, but I get better grades than my son who's attending there now. But like I said, not a competition. And he's going to be speaking after me from the same phone, so we don't have to switch phone numbers. But I'm calling in because when I went to Seminole State, or SCC, I was a single mom. I was recently divorced. My son and I were both in hiding from his father, who was my abusive ex-husband. And I was going to college full time. I was a single mom. I was not receiving any child support. I was also working full-time, and any spare time that I had, I spent it volunteering at my son's elementary school. So back then, having early voting on campus would have meant the world to me. It would have helped me tremendously, and I think it would help a lot of people tremendously. You have, it's about making it convenient for the students who pay to get their education there, and you have the cafeteria and the cafe on campus. And why do you have that? You have it to make it more convenient for people to eat while they're there on campus getting a degree. And SSC, when I was there, and I think it still does, has a gym. And why is there a gym on campus? To make it more convenient to be healthy while getting a degree. Now, I think, having an early voting site on campus is going to make it more convenient for people to do their patriotic duty while getting their education. And currently, I drop my son off on campus, and he stays all day on the days that he doesn't work. He works full-time as well as going to college full-time there. And so the days that he's there, he'll work out at the gym, he'll eat on campus, he goes to the study center to use the computers, and it would be so convenient and so nice for him to be able to vote as well. Otherwise, he would have to take an Uber to, I think the closest one is the Lake Mary Library, the early voting center, and that happens to be the second busiest one in the county. So he would have to take an Uber from campus, go to Lake Mary, who knows how long that line would be, take an Uber to go back, so it's going to cost him more money and additional time out of an already busy schedule to vote, when I think y'all could just do all of the students a favor, and the moms who provide transportation for the students, for them to vote. It's very important to vote. We all know this, and I hope you take that into consideration. Again, I appreciate y'all for having this format, for letting us give our input, and I'm going to turn over the phone to my son.
Thank you, Katrina. And Dane, would you mind stating your name and address for the record as well?
Dane Shaddix, 1133 Covington Street.
Thank you, Dane. You'll have 3 minutes to present. And even though there wasn't a noise, that your mother did a great job. She was clearly, as it says on her card, graduated with honors. So she's finished on time. I'll have you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a full-time student. I also work full-time. I'm an assistant kitchen manager at the Rock and Brews in Oviedo off of Redbug. And being a kitchen, it's a very hectic environment, and you never really know what's going to go on that day. I get lots of overtime because there's a need for, hands on deck. And when I'm not there, I'm studying as much as possible. I'm about to get my AA in mechanical engineering and then stay back at SSC and get my AS and do the direct connect to UCF. I spend a majority of my time either working or studying, and the ability to vote on campus, where I already spend about 50% or a third of my time, would be incredibly convenient, and it would make it a lot more likely that I do go out and vote and participate in politics. Thank you very much.
Dane, thank you for presenting as well, and thank you for sharing your hard work. Certainly, you're doing a lot and taking advantage of both work and school schedule. But thank you for being here and presenting. And thank you to you and your mom, Katrina. All right. I think our next speaker is who I have on my list is Keith Kong. We have Keith on the line. In the queue. Keith, are you there? Can you hear us?
Hi, hello.
Keith, yes, Keith, you are on with Seminole State College. You will have state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak to the board. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Well, my name is Keith Kong, and I live at 908 Lake Destiny Road in Altamont Springs, Florida, 32714.
Welcome.
And, all right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all well as we deal with the pandemic. My name is Keith Kong, and I spoke at the last meeting back in February, not just as alumni, but also as an advocate for early voting on campus. After the meeting's public comments, I was really happy to hear Dr. Lorenz. She shared her remarks, and in particular, one of my favorite things that she said was that SSC is committed to getting out the vote. So if SSC really is committed to getting out the vote, and I'm hoping that is the case, then it doesn't take any stretch of the imagination to understand why voting on campus is something that I think we should all be striving for. In February, I heard several reasons about why this wouldn't be possible, but I think we can focus on some of the solutions instead of the problems, because all of these reasons I think can be overcome. So if SSC does want to get the vote out, and I, together with some of the other speakers here today, hopefully can find solutions and answers to all of these reasons that we're told campus voting would be possible, then I would feel pretty confused at the end of the day if we're still told no. So in February, we were told that the campus would be closed on certain days and that early voting sites must be used for all of the primaries and the general election in order to have consistency. But during the 2018 general election, 13 counties in Florida had more early voting sites for the general election than the primary. So that lack of consistency tells us that 19% of the 67 counties proved that to be counterfactual. We were told that the two closest voting sites were among the least used, but it turns out that one of them, the Lake Mary Library, is actually the second busiest early voting site. We were told that there would be a need for security and extra resources, and that's true, but I think we all believe that Seminole State is more than capable of meeting that demand. I voted last month in a small room that was guarded by a few people, and they could have passed as members of my grandparents' book club. So I don't want to minimize that task, but I think it's something that we could definitely overcome at Seminole State. Yeah, I mean, if the board of directors is really committed to getting out the vote, then let's become an early polling location. Not only is it the sensible thing to do, but I think it's also good for the college's brand and public image. So let's work together and form a timeline for that. Lastly, I'm glad that the meeting's minutes from February gave all the details from Dr. Lorenz's statement, but I was a little disappointed that there weren't more details from the public comments. And I do hope there will be more of that this time. I think that we're bringing a lot of really good points to the table here. So I thank you again for your time. And I'd like to see this move forward. I'd like to know that I haven't been wasting mine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Okay, next up we should have on the line Patrick Gustafson.
Hello?
Yes, Patrick.
Hi.
Yes, you're on now with the Board of Trustees. You state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to present. Welcome.
Oh, I have a quick question before I start then.
This would be public comment time. As far as questions, you would have to pose that with the moderator. If you have comments in regards to early voting, that was your what you filled out on your part. Yes.
Okay. Okay. My name is Patrick Gustafson. I live at 11 Castlewood Terrace, apartment 204 in Castleberry, Florida. First of all, I would like to thank everyone that is listening in on this meeting that is here to support myself and my friends that are speaking today. And I would like to encourage all of you to email Dr. Lorenz or any of the other board members to let them know that you are in attendance. Secondly, I'd like to give a short statement on behalf of newly elected Florida College Democrats President and SSC alumni Michael Kester. He says, good afternoon. As a graduate of SSC and current student at the University of Central Florida and an advocate for student voters across the state, I strongly urge you to reconsider your position on installing an early voting location on your campus. And now I would like to conclude with thoughts of my own in response to some of Dr. Lorenz's claims from the last board meeting. I understand your concerns, though I still believe you are not completely correct. I believe that an early voting location on campus is still very viable and even have ideas as to how this could be implemented. The parking lot behind the G building is pretty empty now that all the fine arts programs have been moved to the J building. I know this because I park there if needed. I never see many cars there at any given time. SSC has ample parking, and in that parking lot alone, I would guess there are plenty of parking spots. And a lawsuit earlier this month loosened those parking requirements. We would be the premier early voting location in terms of parking. I also believe that the best location for an early voting location on campus would be the C building. The old cafeteria has more than enough room to hold an early voting site, and even some of the rooms to the side of the cafeteria are large enough to hold this site, and would be easily accessible to all and could even have people bused there. Putting an early voting location in the back of the school would be simple, easy, and does not get in the way of SSC's day-to-day. If that still isn't an option for the board, and with your on-record statement that you wish to promote voting behavior among students, I would like to suggest two more options. A ballot drop-off site. This option would allow for a more centralized location, potentially in the library, the A building, or even the student center, especially during the COVID-19 crisis. This could be a good idea to continue to encourage voting. And my other idea would be transportation to and from voting sites. SSC has the ability to provide SSC students with transportation to and from voting sites, potentially by securing deals with Uber, Lyft, or even providing buses to bring large groups of students at once to the closest early voting sites. The Lake Mary Library, which is the most used early voting location, and or the Seminole County Office of Elections, which is the second least used early voting location. These options could have designated pickup and drop-off locations either near the bus stop or the student center, basically anywhere between the breezeway or by the student center. I honestly believe that any of these options are feasible here at the SLM campus, but it is on you, the board, to decide which is best. SSC is a fixture of the Seminole County community, and we should treat it as such. Adding early voting to SSC's resume to a better future.
You're at 3 minutes. Can you just take a couple of seconds and wrap up?
Oh, no, that was it. I said I finished my speech.
Okay, great. Thank you. We appreciate your comments and coming on and sharing those with us today. Thank you. Thank you. We have one more speaker, actually, Joseph Holmes. Do we have Joseph on the line?
Hello?
Is this Joseph?
Well, it's his mother, because he uses a communication device which would really be unintelligible over the phone. So if it's okay with you, I'll just say what his point.
That would be fine. Is this Mrs. Holmes?
It is, yeah. Allison Holmes, 1620 Ridge Avenue, Longwood, Florida. Same address as JJ.
Sure. 3 minutes to present, no problem, and you'll hear a ding with you 30 seconds left. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay. So JJ, as you know, spoke at the February 17th, 2020 meeting about what he believed was the need for an early voting location at SSC, and in particular for students with disabilities. And the board rebutted with a number of reasons for the prohibition on early voting at SSC. And one was that 2 early voting locations are within 4 miles of SSC and that they are both underutilized. Another was that the college does not have enough parking available to support the anticipated volume of early voters. So JJ wanted to find out how both positions could be true. And furthermore, I'd like to add to that, to telling him and every SSC student who has a disability that problem solved, because there's an early voting location, a hop, skip and a jump away in a wheelchair, mind you, struck me as a little tone deaf and demonstrates a lack of understanding about the issues faced by wheelchair users. So one final point for me is that SSC has 700% more parking available for wheelchair users than Lake Mary Library. And while that's a minor detail for able-bodied individuals, it's a critical piece of information when you use a wheelchair. So for us, it would be the 4 miles. You may as well double that, triple that, quadruple it. When you're in a wheelchair, 4 miles is an eternity to get somewhere. If it could be clarified by the board about underutilized locations, and I've been there handing out voter information, and Lake Mary is just, it's impossible to get a parking spot there. So I don't know how that's underutilized, but if it could be how it's underutilized, but the reason for not getting a location at SSC is because it would be overutilized essentially, then I think he'd be more clear on coming up with suggestions to resolve this. Okay. Thank you.
Were you finished? You have 30 seconds. You have 30 seconds left.
Yes. No. If you could get clarification on that for the overutilized SSC and underutilized locations close by, that's what he would like to find out. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony today, and on behalf of Joseph, we appreciate you being here today. And,
right. He's here and listening.
Sharing his thoughts and yours. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I think I was going to turn over to Dr. Lorenz. You did have
Yes.
you wanted to share as well. So
Thank you, Chair Howitt. I did, after the February board meeting, in anticipation of the March board meeting, which obviously we canceled, I did contact Chris Anderson, the current supervisor of elections, and he's provided me a statement that he would like for me to read on his behalf. Given the virtual nature of this meeting, we thought that might be easiest. So it reads as follows. Dear Dr. Lorenz and members of the board, the Seminole County Supervisor of Elections Office is a data-driven organization. In 2019, my office examined the viability of early voting on the Sanford Lake Mary campus of Seminole State College. Based on the data, it was determined not to be a viable option for several reasons. First, there are currently 3 early voting locations within a 5-mile radius of the Sanford Lake Mary campus. The closest early voting site is the Northwest Lake Mary Library, which is less than 2 miles away. Secondly, Seminole State has no on-campus student housing, meaning all students and faculty have to commute to campus, and most therefore will pass at least 1 early voting site on the way to SSC. Lastly, Seminole State College is closed during the early voting primary election dates. Our office is one of the most premier elections offices in the United States of America. In Seminole County, we have the lowest cost per voter ratio in the Central Florida region while maintaining the lowest wait times. This election cycle has presented unprecedented challenges to all elections offices in the United States. That is why my office took decisive action to prepare all 320,000 Seminole County voters for the best and safest voting practices during the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic. I want to ensure every Seminole County voter has the opportunity to make the oval target on their ballot, as I am sure their choice counts. Therefore, every Seminole County active registered voter will receive a mail ballot request form sent to them free of charge. This is the first mailer of its kind in the history of Seminole County. Furthermore, we are one of the first counties in the state of Florida to take such bold action. I urge all faculty members and students who are looking for a more convenient way to vote to take advantage of voting by mail. My office is taking steps to educate voters on the benefits of voting by mail, which will include a video and an all-new frequently asked questions section on our website in the near future. Thank you for the opportunity to address this matter.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. I appreciate it. Any board member comments? I do want to say that Supervisor Anderson did offer to come in person when we were having our in-person meeting. So we appreciated that offer as well to address the board, and we appreciate him providing us with a statement and continue to work on getting the word to our students on how they can go about and encouraging voting, because it is so important that they do that and participate. So, any other comments, questions? Okay. All right, Madam President, we'll move on with the President's report at this time.
Great, thank you so much. Mm-hmm. So it's wonderful to see everyone, even if it has to be virtual. It's even better to see that each of you are healthy and safe. The college community and I so appreciate the board's commitment to and support of Seminole State College, our employees, and our students. And I particularly appreciate your advice and counsel as I've called upon you over these past several weeks. It cannot be overstated that these are very challenging and unprecedented times. This is really, really hard. And as Chair Howitt stated, people are struggling, people are scared. I know that people in our community have children and spouses and friends who have lost their employment. To my knowledge, very few members of our college community have been impacted directly by the virus itself, thankfully. But we know that there are many cases here in Seminole County. I want to commend everyone for their patience and flexibility in adapting to and upholding the stay-at-home and social distancing practices for the health and safety of all. Let's keep it up. And on behalf of everyone at Seminole State College, I want to articulate our deep gratitude to the healthcare workers and all of the first responders, many of whom are our alumni. So I'd like to start my report by reviewing the college's response to the current crisis. Our priority, first and foremost, is always the health and safety of our students, employees, and the community. And that priority has shaped our decision-making. Seminole State's spring break, which was earlier than most, ended on March 6th. We returned to campus on March 9th. The information about COVID-19 was just beginning to change and become more clear at that time. By the end of that week, we realized that we would have to close our campuses. During the week of March 16th, we effectively closed the college, employing the protocols and practices that we typically use in the case of natural disaster. All exempt employees, including faculty, were asked to work remotely to prepare to move all instruction and services to the online and remote environment. We suspended instruction, including those classes that were already online, because we knew that those students would not have access to any support services like the library or tutoring. I'd like to take a moment to highlight the efforts of our e-learning and CTS departments. E-learning provided workshops and tremendous support and resources to faculty moving their classes online, while CTS equipped all faculty and staff with the hardware, software, and access they would need to perform their jobs effectively. Our communications team was working hard to keep the college informed during a time when it seemed like things were changing at least daily, if not by the hour. We reopened in the online and remote environment on March 23rd, and I wanted to share just a few relevant statistics with you. As of April 15th, we have hosted 7,055 Zoom video conference meetings that have been attended by 88,388 participants. Monday through Thursday, we typically average between 350 and 400 meetings with over 5,000 participants each day. Our biology and math faculty are consistently in the top 10 users in terms of meeting minutes, and participant satisfaction with Zoom sessions is consistently 100%. Although we've moved classes online, we have found that students still want to connect with one another virtually. Several of our departments, including Student Life, the Career Center, and Intramurals, have been actively engaging students through Zoom events, Instagram and Facebook Live events, and Discord. Thus far, we have hosted 54 virtual events, including Student Government Association meetings, Netflix movie nights, club meetings, career development workshops, and virtual gaming. The Intramural office has been engaging 30 to 40 students in Discord to compete against one another in online gaming tournaments. Just recently, Seminole State volunteers hosted a hunger and homeless forum with 17 students to learn more about this important community issue. Because of the talent and skills and commitment of all of our employees, things are going very well. I am so proud to be part of such an incredible team, and I am so appreciative of everyone's hard work. Each and every one of our employees is doing all they can to support our students and get them to those academic goals. And the Center for Business Development staff are working tirelessly to help our business community get access to financial support. It has really been just incredible to witness our faculty and staff at work during this trying period. The most significant changes that have occurred since all operations resumed has been the extension of the spring withdrawal deadline to April 17th and the option for students to unenroll in spring classes and retake those in the summer 2020 session at no additional cost. So let's talk about summer 2020. For the summer session, all classes will be delivered in the online and remote environment. This is, of course, particularly challenging for those programs that require an on-campus or clinical component. Faculty are seeking out and creating options for the science lab classes and many more. Other classes will continue to be suspended until we can safely bring people back to campus. Summer enrollment has improved over the past 2 weeks. It's difficult to make direct comparisons from year to year because of different deadlines and practices that we're employing in terms of dropping students for non-payment. The head count for summer 2020 is actually 20% higher than for summer 2019, but each of those students is enrolling in fewer classes on average when compared to summer 2019. Academic Affairs is closely monitoring capacity with the goal of accommodating student demand while also running an efficient schedule. One thing to note is that anecdotally, it seems what we're hearing is that universities are not approving students to take classes with us this summer as what we often refer to as transient students, those university students who often will come to us in the summer for general education. They're not getting approved at the same rate as in the past. Now let's turn our attention to the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or the CARES Act. It was enacted on March 27th. It provides $2 trillion in relief for multiple sectors of the economy. Higher education institutions nationally will receive almost $14 billion in support to help mitigate the impact of the crisis. These funds are allocated to each institution based on their relative share of full-time equivalent students, excluding those who were already enrolled in online classes before the crisis. 75% of the funds are based on the number of Pell Grant recipients the college has, and 25% is based on the full-time equivalent students who are not Pell eligible. For Seminole State College, we expect to receive a little over $8 million in total. Half of those funds will be allocated first and may be used only for direct emergency financial support to students who have experienced disruptions to their education due to COVID-19. The other half will come in a second disbursement in the future and is provided to institutions to help them, quote, prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus, as well as costs associated with changes to modes of instruction and services. The CARES Act also provides some important regulatory relief related to financial aid in support of students. It is important to note that this is one-time money intended to provide relief from the current crisis. It is not intended to support ongoing institutional expenses. And details regarding how we can disperse and expend the funds, regulations and compliance issues, and expectations regarding documentation and reporting are not yet clear. Staff continue to attend webinars and consult with the Department of Education and relevant federal financial aid staff on those issues as we continue to strive to gain clarity. So now I'd like to turn my attention to the budget. This is the season during which we build our budget for the next fiscal year. And we are in an incredibly challenging position due to the level of the uncertainty that we face. The legislature passed a budget, but it has not yet been sent to the governor. Once he receives it, the governor has 15 days to respond. What we know from that budget is that Seminole State lost about $76,000 in base funding, while the new tiered model that we were advocating for seems to have passed with about 23 million in new monies, we do not know exactly how much funding will be allocated to Seminole State because we've only seen a draft of the pre-session model and not the final version. We do know that we will have heavy assessments for increases in FRS retirement contributions, as well as the property casualty assessment through the consortium, which will both outstrip our estimated gains in state appropriations. We're very happy to know that we have 3 PICO projects in the budget, a portion of the funding for Building L, funding for the roof on Building G, and funding for the HVAC system in Building B. I would like to extend a special thank you to Trustee Cortez for all of his support and advocacy this session, particularly regarding Building L. Unfortunately, until the governor signs off, nothing is certain. As a result, we are essentially building our budget not knowing the level of support we will be receiving from the state regarding operations or facilities. It's important to note that even before the current crisis, we faced some budgetary challenges. As mentioned earlier, some assessments have increased significantly, as have many other costs outside our control. Meanwhile, our revenue sources have remained flat or declined. We anticipate auxiliary income may decline this year as it is based upon multiple sources, which include facility rentals, the bookstore, and food service. Recently, both Barnes & Noble and Canteen have approached the college to renegotiate their contracts due to the impact this crisis has had on both of their businesses. So concurrent with facing the fiscal challenges the current crisis poses, we need a plan to address our reserve spending. It's clear that COVID-19 will result in an economic recession and that Central Florida is being seriously impacted due to the percentage of citizens and the extent to which our economy relies upon the tourist industry. In fact, Florida is being highlighted by Moody's and others as one of the states that will be hit hardest, and Orlando is one of the hardest hit cities. Sales and use taxes make up about 77% of the state's general revenue, and 1 in every $5 the state collects in those taxes are from hotels, restaurants, admissions to theme parks, and the like. Recent communications from Senate President Galvano seem to signal that we will not have funding cut for this fiscal year, 2019-2020, because the state has built sufficient reserves. No such promises are being made for the fiscal year 2020-2021. Again, we simply do not know at this point. However, using history as our guide, it is certainly possible that we will face mid-year cuts in 2021. I've consulted with many of my fellow Florida College System presidents as well as colleagues nationally. The widespread practice being employed is to build budgets with the expectation of reductions and or unexpected expenses should the crisis continue or the virus resurge. I'm hopeful that the legislature and the governor understand the value and impact of the Florida College System and Seminole State College in times like these. We are an economic first responder. However, I realize that there are also multiple competing priorities and we must be prepared. Typically in a recession, enrollment surges at the state and community colleges. People come to us looking for a new career or retraining in order to get back to work. And many students may choose to matriculate here rather than going away to university to save money and stay closer to home. But because this situation is so novel and unprecedented, we cannot really predict what will happen. Prior recessions were more conventional and did not impact our daily lives and interactions to the extent COVID-19 has. I've asked academic affairs, institutional research, and business services to work together to create several scenarios in terms of both enrollment and the accompanying fiscal impact, and then create models as to how the college will respond. Rather than just waiting to see, we will be proactive and ready to respond quickly. Our responsibility is to ensure that Seminole State College is a financially healthy and resilient institution that can weather the good times and bad times without disruption to the quality education we provide. This college and our mission are critically important to our students, their families, and our community. It's more important than any one of us. Now, you all know that I've committed to being transparent, particularly when it comes to the budget. An unintended result of that commitment may be that I make individuals nervous and uneasy and add to the anxiety that we're all already experiencing. That is not my intent. I cannot reassure you to the extent that I wish I could, but I can assure you that I will share information when I know it, and I can assure you that all decisions will be driven by a focus on what is best for our current and future students. We've already had to make a very difficult decision regarding some of our part-time employees. Due to operational changes resulting from the coronavirus pandemic, and to ensure that the college remains fiscally healthy and resilient, the college will reduce the working hours for some part-time employees and separate others from employment. These are employees whose jobs cannot be performed remotely or whose roles are not needed at this time. Affected employees have been notified by their supervisors, and they will be paid at least through the end of the 2020 spring term, which is April 30th. Now let's try to look forward. I think the general instinct is to hunker down and wait for the crisis to pass and think about returning to life as normal. When we're on the other side of this, I'm not sure that life will be exactly like it was before. And I will admit that it makes me pretty sad to think about that. This crisis will have a profound impact, and it's likely that aspects of higher education may be fundamentally changed. But rather than hunkering down and waiting to see what's to come and reacting to it as best we can, it is critical that we meet this head on and commit to doing what we need to do to come out a stronger and more agile institution that is ready to excel and lead in the new environment. I challenge all of us to be thinking to the future, the kind of college we want to become. Seminole State must poise itself to continue to use high-quality post-secondary education as a lever of change for our students, their families, our community, and our economy. There is no other choice. We need to innovate and change and adapt. It's important from an institutional perspective, just in terms of survival, but it's even more critical from a community and state perspective. Seminole State has an obligation to lead and thrive and to do our part to ensure Central Florida rebounds and flourishes. Finally, on a happier note, I wanted to let everyone know that we have a team working on creating a virtual graduation celebration for our spring 2020 grads. All of them will be invited to participate in person in our December commencement ceremony, but we didn't want to let this moment pass and are coming up with fun ways to commemorate the occasion and celebrate these amazing students who have overcome so much to complete their programs. And Chair Howitt, that concludes my report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Lorenz. Any questions for Dr. Lorenz?
I don't have a question. I do just have a comment. I want to thank Dr. Lorenz and her team for their incredible hard work that they're putting in, and not just their head knowledge, but their heart. This is a tough time for everybody, and I appreciate knowing that our leadership is being sensitive to our employees and to our students. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I echo that. We really appreciate your leadership and the leadership team and the faculty and staff that were, pivoting literally on a moment's notice to make sure that we were taking care of our students and making sure that they were able to get through the rest of the semester. So we certainly truly appreciate them and their work and continuing, and our hearts go out to our graduating class, but know that there's great things to come for them. Not only what we'll do here in this time, but maybe in December when we celebrate them as well. So
absolutely
look forward to that. So thank you. Thank you for your comments. Okay. All right. We will move on to the consent agenda, the categorical consent agenda. Everyone had a chance to review it. Go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I noted as I looked at the agenda that it does not list item 5D as in dog. Item 5D is final adoption of a policy. Policy, I forget the number, I'll have to look it up, but it's about accepting summonses.
It's 1.012.
Yes, thank you. It is in the packet. It was posted with the packet for the week, so I would just ask the board if they would just correct the agenda to reflect item 5D before you vote.
Without objection,
So moved.
the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Add that to the agenda.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Okay. Having made the change to the agenda, the consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. On to the action agenda. Joe, you're up. By the way, for those of you that are streaming and listening, that was our general counsel, Paul Carlin, that let us know about the change in the agenda. So, Joe, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Howard. Good afternoon, Board of Trustees, President Lorenz. Present for the board's approval, item 8A, Sanford Lake Mary Campus Building L first and second floors renovation project completion for Wharton Smith. You can see the background of the item on page 205 of the PDF packet. And I'll just point out to the board that the project team determined that the scope of work had been met, and the project architect issued a certificate of completion on February 19th, 2020. That is in the packet after the cover page or the board transmittal page. College staff have reviewed with the architect and determined that all obligations have been met and the appropriate inspections have been made in accordance with State Board of Education rules. And per board policy, we need you to formally accept the building completion before retainage is released and the final payment is made. Retainage of 10% is always held for all projects, so that dollar amount is just over $1.1 million. College administration recommend that the board accept project completion and authorize college staff to release project retainage and final payment. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on the item.
Joe, any questions for Joe?
No.
No? Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
Did you get that? There we go. Trustee Lockhart with a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. With your permission, I'll move on to item 8B for approval, which is the Sanford Lake Mary Campus Building G, the Fine Arts Building exterior envelope renovation project change order number 1 for Lamphere and Company. That agenda item starts on page 209 of the packet. And I see that Ms. Dahlia has already advanced the slide. Perfect.
Daryl is on the ball.
He is. Thank you.
As always.
Okay, so you recall that this was actually approved back in early 2019. Then we had the sinkhole in Building G, so we had to stop all work. So in December of 2019, it was determined by the project team that the roof replacement and the areas surrounding the theater proper could work. And so throughout this process with the sinkhole, there had been part of the actual roof was damaged. And so what we're actually presenting to you for ratification is a deduct change order in the amount of $1,854.50, which is on page 211 of the board packet. Oh, and Cheryl's on the ball there. Because again, we are including this work with the insurance claim for the actual building and roof damage related to the sinkhole. So college administration recommend that the board ratify change order number 1 to the Sanford Lake Mary Campus Building G exterior envelope renovation project as presented. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on the item.
No questions, but I move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimous.
Thank you. Presenting item 8C. This is the time of year as we move to the end of the fiscal year of June 30th, where we will be presenting a number of required state reports, either as a part of Florida statute or state board rule. And the annual state requirements for educational facilities, or SREF. That report, the fire safety, casualty, and sanitation inspection reports, are one of these. So for the fiscal year 2019-2020. So moving down, you can see the background on page 214 of the board packet, and you can see the reference there. I won't go through all of it. The statutory requirement for this inspection, and it must be submitted to you for approval by June 30th of each year. We outsource that, as many colleges do. They specialize, fire prevention specializes in Specialist Incorporated specializes in this work. And going down through the current status, you can see the requirements of who we actually need to send it to. And the safety inspection report was completed in March 2020 during spring break for all campus locations and centers. And on page 215 of the packet, you can see the 5-year history of facility deficiencies noted. We had the same amount from prior year, which is 2 here at the Sanford Lake Mary campus. One of those was for a mock residential interior that's actually inside the building because they had enclosed walls and a ceiling above it to, again, simulate a residential room. That the safety inspector said that either remove the roof or drop down one of the sprinklers through the roofs, for a number of them, to be able to sprinkler that area. And then the second one for this year is actually a carryover from prior year related to a hydraulic pressure plate that would have been installed at the time of construction. And we're still working on that. And even though we have a safety and security maintenance agreement for that, we're trying to find the last report, which is done once every 5 years, to demonstrate to the fire safety inspector that was accounted for during the last safety inspection. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on the report, and also recommend your acceptance and approval of the 2019-20 SREF Fire Safety, Casualty, and Sanitation Report.
I'd like to move to approve, if I could, and also compliment staff on this remarkable report with only 2 citations for that many campuses and that many square foot is phenomenal. So thank you all.
Second.
The motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you, and thank you for the feedback.
Next on the agenda, foundation update. Trustee Haldeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These are challenging times.
I think there's one more item, 9A. Sorry, Tina.
Sorry, yes, there is. I apologize. You missed that. Yeah. Under administrative actions, 9A, new rule, COVID-19 emergency 2020.
Correct. And I'm not sure if Paul plans to chime in here, but I can give you a quick overview. Essentially,
okay.
Should I give Paul a second?
I've unmuted my audio. I think Lisa has to unmute my video, but you don't need to see my face. I think my voice.
Okay, go ahead, Paul.
So good afternoon, board members. Thank you for this opportunity. You have before you an item and a recommendation for the board to adopt an emergency rule to assist the president in the operational and instructional changes that are happening resulting from the COVID-19 crisis. This recommended action to the board is very similar to the actions taken by the governor and by the Commissioner of Education in terms of providing relief for those rules under their jurisdiction to the various agencies and working groups. The draft policy that you have in your packet as required by statute, outlines the emergency situation that creates the need for the rule. It also articulates rationale as to why the emergency rule is appropriate and necessary, and also a finding that under the circumstances, the adoption process is appropriate. Clearly, it goes without saying that we're in a crisis situation whereby the college is in need of making changes and has been already forced to make changes in operations and instruction to protect the welfare and safety of both students and staff and our community. In terms of the necessity of the rule, as you probably understand, when our current policies and procedures were drafted and adopted by this board, we had no idea that these current circumstances would exist in the future. And so the current rules do not provide us the flexibility that the president needs. Therefore, the rule is asking for the board to give that flexibility to the president on an emergency basis in order to keep services moving forward. The draft policy also is required by statute, lays out the exact scope of the